Hey everybody, God bless you. Glad to be with you again. This is William. I'm back for the Living Faith Bible Talks. It's been quite some time since we had the Bible Talks, and so since last time we've been together over the Bible discussion, things have happened, things have transitioned, and I'm just happy for the opportunity to be back with all of you to share God's word. As we were last together, we were studying the book of James and really kind of going through James and understanding James's teaching on how to live life. And the bulk of what he's talking about in chapter one, or at least in the first part of chapter one, is focused on the idea of being joyful for the tough times that happen in our lives. And they happen ever so often. But when they do happen, there's what James call need for joy, because joy is an expression of our acceptance and our understanding of why we're going through that difficult moment at that time. And so, in spirit of what we've started already, I'm going to continue in James. I'm still in chapter one, but I want to pick up verse 9 through 11, and we're going to talk about the cycles of prosperity. And I think this particular piece of subject matter that James covers is critical for all of us, because depending on who you are and where you are in life, your perspective on prosperity may be insight in terms of being able to acquire it, while others have changed their perspective in their mind. And no matter where you fall on that particular track, hopefully this particular Bible study will give you affirmation, confirmation, or help you adjust to where James is teaching us, where we probably should be in our mindset. So James chapter 1, verse 9 through 11. And it says, when down and outers get a break, cheer. When the arrogant rich are brought down to size, cheer. Prosperity is as short lived as a wildflower, so don't ever count on it. You know that as soon as the sun rises, pouring down its scorching heat, the flower withers, its petals wilt, and before you know it, that beautiful face is a barren stem. Well, that's the picture of the prosperous life. At the very moment everybody is looking on it in admiration, it fades away to nothing. That's a very interesting discussion about James that he's putting forward to the church. Now, I think the best way to characterize what James is talking about is to talk about it in terms of cycles. So, a cycle is a series of events that regularly repeat. So it happens over and over and over again in some sort of pattern. We see cycles in our lives by way of something as simple as the sun rising and setting, or seasonal changes that occur 4 times a year: summer, spring, fall, and winter. Or even we see cycles in our own emotions, our own feelings, and our own thought processes. We, as believers, understand cycles completely. And so these basic examples, based upon what we see, what we experience, and what we're feeling, kind of talks about the basic understanding of cycles. Now, cycles are critical to our experiences because it allows us to be rejuvenated and renewed. Too much of one thing or too much of the same thing can wear out an experience and really wear you down from the perspective of you're unable to deal with it on a continuous basis. That's why it's healthy to take breaks, or healthy to go on vacation, or healthy to just pause and relax for a moment, therefore breaking up the cycle that you're in right now so that you can have a moment of rest, relaxation, and rejuvenation. Now, when we experience breaks in cycles, we develop a deeper sense of appreciation of the cycle that we're currently in. You ever talk to somebody who is supposed to be on vacation from work, and a day or two in, they're talking about, yeah, I'm so glad I did this. And then probably by day three, they're back thinking about work. And by day four, they're anxious to get to work. By day five, they probably already responded to all the emails that have piled up. When you see somebody like that, I mean, we could talk about, that person not really knowing how to appreciate vacation, but let's think about it in context of cycles. They've had a break from what they've been normally doing, and they now have a deeper appreciation and understanding, and now they're rejuvenated about what they took a break from, because they've seen what they've been going through from a different perspective. They took a step back, and now they can see yeah, I know how to resolve that issue better now. I think I got the answer to that particular problem I've been struggling with. So breaks and cycles help us see differently what we've been going through and gives us a brand new, fresh perspective of what the cycle is, what's going on in that particular cycle. Now, let's go a little deeper for a moment. I gave you some pretty basic examples of cycles, the sun rising and setting and the seasons changing. But think about this even in a deep context. Although the sun rises and sets every day, we all appreciate breaks in the cycle when the sun is out longer than normal. And the sunlight allows us to experience more than we normally do on a normal day. Now, the sun is going to rise and set in every season of the year, right? But when it becomes spring and summertime, the sun is out much longer. I don't know about you, but I appreciate having the sun out at 5 o'clock in the morning if I'm up doing my thing and the sunlight is just coming into the house, or I'm going out for a walk or to do something outside. 5 o'clock in the morning, the light is just out, and I can appreciate that. Or even when I come home from work and the sunlight is still out, I can appreciate the scenery as I'm driving home. That break in the regular cycle of the sun makes me appreciate it so much, because when it becomes fall and winter, as you guys know, the sun wakes up late and then it goes to sleep early, right? And it's something that it's kind of weird to deal with, and I'm sure some of you out there who are listening understand what I'm saying, because it's not fun being up 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and the sun is just not out yet and it's pitch dark, and you got to get the kids ready and get to school, and then it's 4 or 5 o'clock time to come home from work and it's already dark outside. That's not a fun feeling. So when there's a break in the regular cycle, we find more time to appreciate what we love about the cycle that's happening. And for us, many of us, the summertime is great just because the sun is out much longer. Or even think about the seasonal example I gave you, where we have different cycles of the season, but there are those occasional breaks that are welcomed in the deep of winter, right? When it's cold and it's blustery, depending on where you live in the country, and it's snowing outside. Most of us appreciate a break even in that cycle of winter, when the sun is unseasonably out and the temperature is unseasonably warm, and we get the chances to take a break from winter and then get a glimpse of what it's going to be like for summer and spring after the season is over. We can appreciate a break in that cycle. Or what about in the dead heat of summer, and we get a cool day, right? And we get to experience what it means to just have the coolness of the breeze against us, as opposed to having the sun beating down upon us. A break in that particular cycle gives us an appreciation of what we go through and what we look forward to. Too much of one thing can be detrimental and it wears us out. And I think this is a great segue as we talk about cycles, the things that happen on a regular basis and breaks in our cycles. This is a great segue as we look at what James is teaching us here in verses 9 through 11. He offers his perspective on the cycles of life. I talked about basic cycles related to whether the sun setting changes in our emotions and feelings, but James offers his perspective of cycles in context of life, and he connotes that there are cycles in life. There are the poor, and then there are the rich. The cycle includes being up, being down. It includes being prosperous and being not so prosperous, right? He says that regardless of the cycle of life that you're going through, every cycle has a break before the cycle continues. It is not just a continuation of what you're going through. There is a moment, there is a breaking period that allows you to experience a change so that you can appreciate what you're going through and perhaps make changes to alter what you're going through. For those of you that are down and out, he says in verse 9, and you experience a break in your cycle, cheer. For those of you in verse 10 who are rich and have prosperity and you're humbled by some sort of experience, cheer. The reason why he's telling us to cheer, it goes back to verse 2. Count it all joy when you go through different or diverse temptations or struggles, because what you're going through is a moment of learning and adjustments and growth. Just because it doesn't feel right in that moment, and trust me, I understand that most things that we go through that aren't pleasurable does not feel right at that moment. The context of what we're going through in the whole breadth of what we're going to experience in our lifetime will help us mature and grow to our next level, particularly in our faith. So it talks about, for those of you who are poor, for those of you who are rich, and you experience an alteration of that cycle, cheer, because whatever you have right now will not last long. And he specifically is talking about the rich and those who are prospering. The prosperity life does not last long. It's limited, yet everybody is in pursuit of it. Everybody is chasing after it. And what he wants you to understand is in this particular text, those cycles do not last long. Therefore, you have to guard it and appreciate it with everything that you have. And then remember, we're also taught that not to love money, right? Jesus taught us to not love and worship money and God. If we're worshiping prosperity equivalent to our worship of God and what He is to us and what He's done for us, we've lost the point of what it means to be a believer in this life. No matter if you have resources or don't have resources, even the rich experience loss on a regular basis. We may not see it, we may not experience it, it may not be relatable to us, but they experience loss. And for those that have resources and they experience loss, it is a significant hurt because it is a decrease of their wealth, it's a decrease of their assets, and it limits their capability of doing what they are normally used to doing on their level. If you understand that basic definition, then you can understand what it means to go through what you're going through at a much lower level when you consider yourself down and out. When you have a job and all of a sudden you lose it and you're unable to pay basic bills that you're normally able to pay because your resources are gone. You can understand what it means to lose, right? But when you have a job and when things are going reasonably well in your life, for those of you who may not be exorbitantly wealthy, you're considered prosperous, right? Because there are people who are living next to you or who are even in your community who don't even have the resources that you have. And according to them, you're prosperous. So when you understand what James is teaching, you can understand the context of one, for those of you that are down and out, that won't last long, cheer. For those of you that are rich and you're arrogant about it, that won't last long, cheer. Okay. Now, the reason why I want this is an interesting Bible discussion is because when the cycle breaks, that gives you a chance to look back at your current situation and make adjustments to what's going on in your life. If you are down and out, it does not mean you have to remain down and out. You don't have to remain at that lowest level because that's not the expectation that God has of you. Now, there will always be those who will be at that level, and He teaches us that. But if you are desiring a shift or a change or adjustment in your life, maybe you want a new or better or a high paying job. Perhaps you want to go back to school and get educated. Perhaps you're looking to make adjustments in terms of where you live or the school your kids are going to. For all of us, that adjustment period or what we desire as prosperity is different. But if you're feeling down and out, when you get a break from it, when you get a moment of grace and mercy that God is giving you, that is your chance to not only appreciate the grace, appreciate the break, but take a second look at your life to figure out, Lord, how can I make adjustments to come out of this cycle permanently, or at least to no longer be in a cycle for longer periods of time than I'm used to. For those of you that have resources, so let's talk on the level of most of you who are watching this broadcast. For those of you who have a job, who have got your education, who have resources coming in, and for those of you who take it for granted, when moments happen in your life, when those resources become tight or you lose them or they're no longer available to you, when you experience those moments where you don't have everything that you're used to available to you, James is teaching us to be cheerful. Now, he goes in and talks about that prosperity is limited and we chase it all the time. And you guys know that's true. But when you have that break in your prosperous moment, take a moment to just appreciate what God has blessed you with and what He is giving you, because it's those resources that it's supposed to be used for kingdom purposes, whether it's supposed to be giving to your local church or supporting those who are in need or taking care of your family, making sure that they have everything that they need, or just being a good neighbor. right? Those resources are critical. And if you take them for granted, if you're arrogant about it, and if you're unconcerned about it, then those moments when you fail are going to hurt much, much harder. But if you remember what he teaches us in verse 2 about being joyful in the time where we're having our toughest moments and we're being tested, remember that you're being tested so that you can grow and mature. When that cycle is over and you've decided, I don't want to no longer be arrogant, or I don't want to be down and out, or I don't want to be in a position where I take for granted what God has done for me. You would then find a joy in that moment where you were broken and you had a break from the experiences that you were used to, because now you've changed your mindset and your context of thinking has totally adjusted. This whole book of James is about how to live life in a way that allows you to be a believer in every day, in every way possible. And I hope that as you're getting a part of getting involved in these Bible studies, that you're learning something about your life and your context as a believer, so that you can make the right adjustments in your life and be a light wherever you are. So until the next time, I pray that God keeps you and blesses you, and that you join us every week for our Bible talk. And before I go, let me pray. Blessings of the Lord over you. Father, I thank you for your word, and I appreciate your word and how it teaches us how to live life. I pray, Father, that you encourage us on this broadcast to pursue you in all that we're doing, to be considerate of you, to think of you in all that we're doing, that we may appreciate the breaks in our cycles and understand, God, where you're calling us to be, what you're calling us to do in this lifetime. I pray these blessings in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you guys, and see you next time.